Hey, yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah. That's what I used to test my mic out, make sure everything was working. I forget what that song is called, but it's pretty old. It's a pretty old song. I just kind of want to snap your fingers to it. Hey, yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah. I'm sure somebody in the comments will gladly remind me what that song is while I'm having this brain freeze right now. But anyway, welcome back to the MechaWill Show. The crazy show that is MechaWill. I am MechaWill, your host, and today is another MechaWill discussion. It's another important one. Also, another one on the Souls series, which I promise this whole shindig isn't necessarily supposed to be just for, Souls-related things, even though, I am the biggest fan of Souls. But, it has been, the past 2 or 3 of them have been around Souls-related topics. But here's the thing. There's some things to talk about the Souls community, and this next one is another important issue. So if you haven't seen my previous video on plagiarism in the Souls community, please check that out. I'll put the link probably like right here, maybe. If I could actually fit that link right into to where my hands are right now, like that would be beautiful, but I really doubt it. But anyway, let's grab on to this next topic. And this discussion, for all of you out there, all you beautifully minded people, is about how fractured the Souls community is getting. Now let's all take a moment to think about that. The Souls community really consists of, a lot of artists and content creators, including people like Sunlight Blade and Bati Vidya and Terra Mantis, Dave Control Live, and Abyss Gravelord, and Iron Pineapple, one of my personal favorites. And of course, the host of other content creators, the fans of the series and the fans of the content creators, the musicians who have been creating fine works for the Dark Souls community. Lord Vessel by Tanuki Suit is probably the best song I've ever heard in my life. It's a great song, and it gets stuck in your head just like that "Hey Ya" song does get stuck in your head. But the issue is, let's lay this out, because before there were all these games, it started with Demon Souls. Demon Souls is a beautiful game. It was published in 2009, I think, by Atlas over here in North America, and in Europe, I believe. But it was a Japanese-only game for a while, and it gained a cult following. I think as to date, it's sold over 2 million copies now, or 1 or 2 million. I believe it's 2 million. Mostly, in retrospect, due to, Dark Souls becoming popular and people wondering, well, where does that come from? It comes from Demon Souls, motherfucker. Go grab yourself a copy. Go beat those man-eaters and get that old monk to take off his turban. But, I love Demon Souls. A big fan of Demon Souls. But there's the thing, Demon Souls as a title was, it was pretty self-contained. It was one title, and the fans of Demon Souls were all hardcore. It was a small community, but they were hardcore fans for the game, and that was it. They were all kind of together on everything. And then we bring in a game like Dark Souls, which is, I don't know if you can say anything less than a masterpiece. Beautiful title, beautiful game. Not without its faults. People seem to kind of want to brush away the faults, but it has some faults, but it's one of the most beautiful games I've ever played in my lifespan. Which, granted, I'm not like a 60-year-old man, but, if I was, I'm sure I'd be making the same statement. Seeing as there weren't even video games 60 years ago, necessarily. There was stick in mud and, rock throwing, but those aren't really video games. Oh, wow, how people pass the time. So we had Dark Souls enter into the mix, right? And this brought in a lot more fans. This brought in a lot more people. All these people really liked the game. They kind of melded well with the Demon Souls community, because the Demon Souls people were super excited to have a game that kind of, polished up and fixed some of the faults that Demon Souls had, and they were good. They were ready for new content and stuff like that. Still angry about that 6th goddamn Archstone, as I am at this point as well. But sorry, for the references, if you haven't played Demon Souls, go play it. It's a wonderful game. I know it requires a PS3, but you know what? The PS3 is a beautiful system as well. A little bit clunky, a little bit old, a little bit aged at this point, but that's all right. Um, and anyway, so we have all these people coming in. This is where the content creators really start jumping on. This is where the people that are making the lore videos. This is where the ENDs, well, I mean, Demon Souls and all that. Like this time with the Demon Souls, Dark Souls, this is where all of the content creators start coming in, and boom, it's blossoming right now. The whole community is really coming together on their own, and the love is just spreading, and it's a great community. It's a great place to be. In case you're lost right now, I'm trying to lay out a timeline before I get to where things are today and why they need to change. Because MechaWill discussions are about change. I am here to speak about things that are important to me, and I hope important to other people, and to say the things that I think need to be said that maybe some people aren't saying. That was not like a veiled accusation towards anybody. I was just somebody is not saying. I'm really just making a straw man to pump up my own argument. But anyway, so we have all these people, and then this is where you get Lord Vessel by Tanuki Suit. This is where you get the soul songs that Bati, engendered on his channel. And this is where you got all this stuff, and people are singing the tunes, and it's like, if only I could be so grossly incandescent. Beautiful voices, beautiful guitars, and it's a great song. In case you can't tell, I really like that song. But anyway, you've got these. You got all of this stuff happening, and the community's exploding. The game gets rated, 9s out of 10s and 10s out of 10s on different places. It was like the sleeper. Demon Souls, I believe, was the sleeper hit RPG of the year for GameSpot for their game of the year. And it was also, president of Sony, when Shuhei Yoshida, the president of Sony Worldwide Studios, came in and gave us like top 10 lists of his favorite games ever. Like Demon Souls, I think, was number 1 or number 2. Among those were like Journey and Last of Us and good stuff like that. But Demon Souls was one of Shuhei Yoshida's favorite games, and you don't mess with the Shu. Okay, Shuhei Yoshida is a beautiful. I love Shuhei. I love Shuhei Yoshida. God damn, he's such a good man. All right, but you have you got this timeline, right? And the community has only gotten bigger at this point. But here's the issue with big communities. This issue is apparent with all big communities. So I really don't want to make this seem like it's just the Dark Souls community. This is with all communities that start small and get larger. And it's just sponsored by Ethos Water. I hope you guys know I'm joking. I'm not sponsored by anything. This is damn good water. You want a sponsorship? Ethos Water, helping children get clean water. Buy it now. Buy it fresh. Buy it while it lasts. And let me take another sip. Oh, MechaWill, you got no shame. I do. I lost my shame. I don't know where it is. I'll have to find it. We'll get myself a little shame finder. By the way, just a small little tangent here. I was just recently replaying Pokemon. Okay, let's be real here. Pokemon Gold is my favorite game of all time. All right, or not my favorite game of all time. Let's drop that back. My favorite game series of all time is the Elder Scrolls series and the Dark Souls series. Definitely best games. Elder Scrolls I love for its deep amounts of lore. Dark Souls I love for the same, and I love for for the combat and all that kind of stuff. PvP, it's all good. But my favorite Pokemon game of all time is Pokemon Gold and Silver. But you know what? Silver can fuck right off, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not the same as Gold. Because you can't have Ho-Oh in the fucking tower, or you switched with Lugia, who's under the, and they're in different locations and they're switched, and it's not cool. And Ho-Oh can start at level 70. Where's the work? Where's the work that you have to put in to get Ho-Oh from that level 40 that he starts off with, or 45 or something like that, to get him to the Pokemon Championship League? Ho-Oh's not an end game character. He's your pal. He's your buddy. He's supposed to stick with you through thick and thin. Anyway, Pokemon Gold, best game. I was replaying through the Pokemon games, specifically Pokemon Gold, because of Iwata, CEO of Nintendo. He passed away recently, as I stated or maybe didn't state. It's in one of my videos that I recorded. I'm sure it'll come up on the channel sometime. But he did work on Pokemon Gold. He in fact fit the whole region of Kanto into the game, the end game region, which I love him for that, and I love him for the other games that he made too. I don't remember where this tangent was going, but I've replayed through Pokemon recently. There was something I was gonna attribute to that, but let's get back on topic because I don't remember it, and I'm trying not to look foolish right now. I'm sure when I rewatch the video, I'll stop looking foolish. But here's the thing: you've got all your so you've got these communities that are growing and everything, and here's the problem with big communities is because big communities always have an underbelly. There's not enough room for an underbelly when it's a small community. The underbelly is just the belly. It's just you feed it and that's it. It's just the belly. You can't have like this secret little subsects and stuff like that. But when you get to a large community, you get a lot of people attracted to it, and the real issue with large communities is actually the issue with people, and that's that people are different, and that's not an issue. I know I just phrased it like it was an issue. People are all different, but there's also a lot of people that have a lot of anger, a lot of hate, a lot of stuff built up. There's people that feel very comfortable trolling. I mean, trolling's okay. Trolling's funny sometimes. Trolling is, a lot of people like to sit behind their keyboards, and because there's really no recompense for doing something online, besides the occasional bad mouthing from people that want you to shut up. So this really like empowers a lot of people to do a lot of stuff and say a lot of things that they wouldn't normally say in real life, So when you get these large communities, you get all these trolls and you get all these people coming in, and suddenly, you've got these people that are, kind of being hateful to outsiders, being hateful to insiders, trolling around, trolling about and stuff like that. The trolling is, my stance on trolling is mostly fine. If you can't take the punch, get off the internet, maybe. Because the trolls are everywhere. There's really nothing you can do. But if they're being, like, intrinsically hateful or mean towards the group with, like, actual purpose, like, that's not okay. But if they're making a funny joke, I'm all about comedy. I do stand-up myself. I'm a comedian and all these other things. And I love that, comedy has no bias. Comedy can hit any race, any gender. Comedy makes fun of everybody, and it's and as long as it's done tastefully. That's I mean, you can do it untastefully. You can put up a Confederate flag if you want to. It's goddamn tasteful and it's goddamn disrespectful to this country. Here's the thing: Confederate flag is not a symbol of Southern pride or something like that. It is a symbol of fucking racism. Get that shit out of here. I think it already has gotten out of here, and now I'm off topic, but. Let's not get into American politics. Sorry. My mind is spinning right now, and I've got all these different topics in my head that I want to talk about. This MechaWill discussion is specifically about the Souls community. So, what happened with the Souls community? We had Dark Souls. Boom, exploded. Huge amount of people. Dark Souls 2 was on the horizon. People were so excited, and this is when the community got really big and really large enough to start having those hateful people inside of it, and to start having these trolls, and to start having all these people that are engendering feelings of disparity, in a lot of people. And, like I said, this is the problem with a lot of large communities. Really not a lot you can do about it. But then it went a little bit farther. Went a little bit farther past that, and we started becoming a little bit more, hard-hearted ourselves. The community at large, it started to, almost like a poison, it started to seep into the community, and it started to affect a lot more people. You talk to anybody, you talk to a lot of people, I don't want to say anybody, you talk to a lot of people, and a lot of them will say, the Souls community is not welcoming at all. They're a bunch of dickheads, they're a bunch of assholes, they're a bunch of, and I don't think that's true. I don't think that really describes all of us, but, it's come to the point where there's a lot of people in the Souls community that they're not being friendly to outsiders, they're like, talking about, the get good is all fine. I like that. When people are talking and it's like somebody's complaining, like, I can't beat Ornstein and Smo, you just say, get fucking good. Get good, casual. But, of course you need those people that are also willing to help. Like, the get good doesn't work if everybody is just saying get good, because then nobody feels like anybody's listening to them. You have the joke, and then you also have the kind-hearted people that are like, all right, well, take a little, go get Kellogg's Fury Sword, and then I'll take him down real quick. But this is a problem with the Souls community. This is an issue that I've been noticing for a while. I've been talking about for a while. The fracturing of the Souls community, and it's really started to become an issue, specifically after Dark Souls 2 released. Man, there was a lot of hate for that Dark Souls 2 game. And that's I mean, you can hate what you want or whatever, but it was to a point that was a little bit excess, and this, people started drawing lines in the sand with these games, and suddenly you were part of the Dark Souls 2 camp or the Dark Souls 1 camp. Couldn't be part of both. Suddenly you can't talk about Dark Souls 2 without talking about Dark Souls 1. Suddenly you can't talk about Dark Souls 1 without talking about how much better it is than Dark Souls 2. And people started to live in these little fantasy worlds where Dark Souls 1 was incredibly perfect and Dark Souls 2 was incredibly bad, and Demon Souls, people didn't touch it because most people haven't played it. They just pretend that they've played it, and Demon Souls is a great game as well. People started stopped taking these games at face value and started building them up to kind of fit their little collective, subgroup that they had within the community. And then this has gone on even farther and farther, and the hate has really filled out. There's a clear issue with this. When you have creators that are part of the community having to leave it because of vile vitriol that's being hurled at them, like Hellkite Drake and Sunlight Mag and Rosie and all these great content creators that had to stop making their content because people were being dicks. That's a bad sign. It's a really bad sign. It really is something that most people should be ashamed of if they're part of the community. And so now we get to today, at the end of the timeline. We had all these games released. We had Scholar of the First Sin, and we're having some people that are a little bit more calm-headed speaking out. We had our little plagiarism controversy that's still rolling on right now. We got all these things going on. And the Souls community is huge, with Bloodborne and all these things. But now it's like everywhere you look, people are drawing lines in the sand. People are picking sides. People are, attacking, content creators. People are being angry and hateful for no reason. And there's always a time for anger. There's always a time for revolution. There's always time for all this stuff. But there's no cause for this. So what's the purpose of this video? This video is, I'm hoping for real change with these MechaWill discussions, and so what I'm aiming for here is to bring the community back as a whole, together as brothers, as we once were back in those Dark Souls days, back in the days of the Lord Vessel song with Tanuki Suit, and back to the days of grandeur. And some people might say that that's not possible, not with the amount that the community has grown and the fact that these things are inevitable. It's not inevitable. We can band together. We can be the place where people want to be, where people are accepted, where people see and they're like, man, is that Souls community so freaking cool and so hilarious. And I made some posts on Reddit a long time back about how I felt about the Souls community and how beautiful it is. How people like Iron Pineapple will literally like make me just spit up whatever I'm eating or whatever I'm drinking, which is disgusting. I grant you. While I'm watching their videos, or there's all the pranks from this guy named Dante, that does pranks. I saw a lot of his Dark Souls 2 pranks, wearing full Onion Bro armor with two other people and like, just force spamming people, around the area. This is the good part of the community. This is the stuff people love. And not only do you have these colorful, creative, beautiful, wonderful, humorous, people, but then you've got, serious intellectual people that are like really discussing deep about the themes of the game and about the lore and creating all these fantastical stories and discussing and talking and creating this web together. And it brings people closer together. I've never felt closer to people than when I'm discussing lore with Dark Souls and we both come to the same conclusion. We're both like, the Hollow is the original state. Back when they showed that intro in the very first Dark Souls game, and they showed those hollows going up towards the flame, the reason the curse is happening is the curse is just reverting us back to our original state. We both say the same thing at the same time, and it's like, Boom! You know, it's like you get this feeling of connection and this feeling of love between all these people, and it really makes you feel passionate about the community, and that's why there's so much longevity. That's why people are still playing Demon Souls right now. That's why there's a great subreddits for all of these things down on Reddit, and great communities on Facebook and YouTube and all these things, you know? This is the beautiful part, and this is the part that we must keep, but the hate has got to stop. The people like Hellkite Drake, this can't happen. This has got to stop, you know? And we can affect it. We can do something about it, you know? It's not that, you know, if you just throw up your hands and you don't try, you don't say anything, and it's just not important to you, nothing's going to happen. And more people are going to come in, and more people are going to turn their nose in distaste and disgust at our community, you know, and who we are. And they're going to be like, you know what, the Souls people are a bunch of jackasses. They're a bunch of, you know, and you know what, it doesn't even matter if there's some people, if there's, you know, even, you know, half the people aren't even jackasses, because the other half that are jackasses are much louder. They're the people that are getting seen all the time. They're the people getting called out. They're the people that are forcing creators out of their comfortability for, you know, for biases towards, you know, what race they are, what gender they are, or all this bullshit. We're all people. We all love the Souls games, and you know what? Every single Souls game, every single From Software game is beautiful. You know, and they're just so fucking magnificent. They're so. I have not played a game in this day and age that has come close to what Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne have done for me, and have done for gaming as a whole. I'm planning on doing a series about this, but it brings together all of these elements of, you know, your old school Castlevania, your beautiful, like, intelligent design, your intelligently, you know, designed levels, and all this kinds of stuff with an amazing, intensive, deep combat system. And then most games stop there, but Souls games don't. They then add on to all this incredible gameplay, this wonderful amount of depth in the story and narrative, and man, it's such a good series. It is such a good game series, and, you know, if you want, you know, a foolproof reason to why games are art, look at the Souls series, you know? I also point out games like Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, stuff like that. Those are beautiful games as well. They fall into the same genre for me as same category for me as Dark Souls, and that is revolutionary games. And I think people are starting to see that. The fact that these communities are growing so largely is in tandem with the growing, you know, idea that these games are, you know, really something special. And as a community, it's our job, it's our prerogative to be special with it. It's our job to engender these passions within people, and to foster them, and create a caring space where people can feel safe, you know, coming in, where content creators can feel safe without, you know, people worrying if they're, you know, if they're, you know, what kind of gender or race or any of this kinds of stuff, you know? It's not, this is a difficult issue to tackle, but I don't think I'm the only one that's seeing this, you know? I'm not the only one that's seeing these splits in the Souls community. The fact that, you know, a couple of years ago, we were together as a whole, and maybe there were some of those, you know, hateful people there as well, you know, but now it's just it's degenerated, you know, and this is not to spurn the community at large. This is all still happening within the community, the beautiful discussions and all that, but it's not the same, and I'm not just doing this from like a perspective of we have to get back to where we were before. This is about moving us forward. This is about showing, you know, not only what the Souls community can do for the rest of the games community, for the rest of the video gaming community, and not only that, for the rest of our artistic community. You know, one of my goals in my life is to make sure that, you know, video games are seen as just as much as art as movies and television and books and all these other things that I love myself. Music, you know, it's the same. It deserves the same kind of respect and the same kind of thing. And if people take a look at the Dark Souls games and the thought and care that are put into these games and the following that they have, you know, I don't want to see us like the Call of Duty community, which, you know, again, not to spurn the Call of Duty games, but, you know, there's a lot of just fucking hateful people in the Call of Duty community, you know? It's full of people that are just trying to, you know, prove how big their dicks are and be like, oh shit, my KDR, and you know, people get pushed out of that community too, you know? You know, women in general, like, I don't want to get into this, you know, women seems to be a hot topic on the internet, but, you know, women in general in the Call of Duty community are also fucking pushed out pretty hard, and they're like, well, you're only playing video games because you want dick, or you're only playing, you know, Call of Duty because you know, you want to be a fucking, you know, gamer girl, you know, 2 R's, and it's like, holy shit. We're better than that. I know we're better than that as a community. I know that these kinds of games draw intelligent, thoughtful, creative, you know, passionate, funny. Fucking the trolls are fine. They're funny, but the intelligent discussions are fine. They're funny. The people that don't want to have any of this shit, they don't want to like invest that much time. Cool. Like you don't have to be like a major or like, you know, player in the community to be a part of the community. We accept everybody. And even if you just want to, even if you're just interested in just kind of looking around and reading, oh, that's, you know, that's kind of cool. That's a kind of a cool idea that they had in Dark Souls. That's a cool idea. I see how the, you know, the man-eaters kind of inspired the gargoyle fight. And you just pick up a couple facts, you talk to a couple people, they're all friendly and everything. That's it. You know, that's cool, and you're part of the community as well. And the thing is, we've got a large amount of people coming in, all this influx of people, and this fracturing has got to be healed. You know, not just the lines of war between, you know, the different kinds of games and which is better and which is as this and kinds of stuff. Again, you know, people will retort back, you know, well, you know, that's the discussion you can have. You can't stop me from talking about, oh, I think this mechanic is better than this mechanic. It's, you know, that's your opinion. That's totally fine. And you're right, I can't stop you about talking about that, nor would I want to, you know. I feel like some things, you know, are better than others. I feel like, you know, Dark Souls 2 omnidirectional rolling is a better, you know, thing for Dark Souls 1, but Dark Souls 1, I feel like, you know, the poise system was better, or, you know, whatever. And it's like, that's totally fine, but then that does not immediately mean that you can be, you know, I thought Dark Souls 1 was better, so fuck you, fuck your family, fuck your mom's, you know, brethren, fuck everybody in this whole circle. Fuck, you know, fuck Konami, that's allowed. But beyond that, it's like, that's not okay, you know. I want this community is so great, and has so much fucking potential to be one of the best, you know, video game community, to be the best video game communities out there, because on my personal opinion, these are the best video games out there, you know. And we have so many creative people, and this fracture, it's just really hurting us, you know. So to look forward into the future, no doubt we got to be healed, you know. I want us to come together whole again, you know, without hate. The infighting, you know, it's like a civil fucking war in Reddit sometimes. It's like a civil fucking war in the YouTube comments sometimes. It doesn't have to be like that, you know. We're all brothers, we're all together, we're all in love with these games. Whether or not you started, oh, you only started playing Bloodborne, that's the latest game, you're not fucking allowed in the community. No. You started with Bloodborne, great, you found the Majesty, now work your way backwards, go pick up Demon Souls. You know, that's what it should be, that's what the responses should be. But I've seen people that are like, you know, your opinion's not valid because you started with Dark Souls 2. Fuck off! You know, I don't mind if I'm offending somebody right now, because it's, you know, I even hope I'm offending some people, and I hope that these people are offending speak up, so that everybody else around them can see exactly who the people are that are creating this feeling in the community, that's splitting, fracturing, and destroying these different parts of the community, pushing out content creators, creating all this strife and trouble, and making it a place where people don't want to be. And this is a place where people want to be. We want people to want to be here. You know, Epic Name Bro was talking, you know, just a couple of videos ago about how he's had feelings about not wanting to be a part of the community, and all this kinds of stuff. He's had hate, you know, hate mail and death threats, and enough is enough. You know, we're better than this, and we can really heal and come back together. I know I keep going over the same topics over and over again, but it's really important for me to get this across. The Souls community is hurting right now. It's fractured. It's getting larger, and the fact that the fact that it's getting larger, and with the launch of Dark Souls 3, means there's going to be a lot more pressure put on those fault lines, on those cracks in the system. You know, so we got to heal those cracks. We got to come together as brothers and show the world that we are one. We can all sit there together, hold hands, and sing Lord Vessel, and talk about how great each and every one of these games are. Bloodborne, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, you know, and all beautifully wait in anticipation of Dark Souls 3. You know, people are allowed to have their opinions and talk about what they like about the games, what they don't like about the games, but it doesn't have to get nasty, and it doesn't have to draw lines. You don't have to be like, if you like this, then you're fucking stupid, and if you like this, then and drawing out and pushing out creators like, you know, like Hellkite Drake. This is the, you know, those are the signs that we need to shape up. And again, I don't mean to say this like everybody in the Souls community is like this. In fact, I don't even think the majority of people are like this. But the people that are like this, they're causing a lot of problems. So that's today's MechaWill discussion. If you agree, or if you have something to say, or if you want to, you know, contribute to the discussion, please leave a comment. You know, I'd really appreciate it. You know, I hope you guys can kind of get where I'm talking about, because a lot of these MechaWill discussions are done on the fly, and these are just my personal opinions on what I'm talking about. And I really hope that I got my point across. You know, we're split as a community, and we got to heal up. And not only that, it's going to become such a fucking bright future for us if we do. You know, together, it's just it's the greatest feeling in the world, and the fact that we can show everybody, you know, what the Dark Souls community is, what we can do, and how much artistic creativity and all this stuff that we have, without having, you know, the bullshit hate and the biases against gender and race and you know, all the hate lines drawn between the games and stuff like that. So thank you very much for coming to MechaWill. My name is MechaWill. This has been another episode of MechaWill Discussions. Please like, share, subscribe. It would really help me out. I'm a very small channel. You know, just like refer to some of your friends, get them to subscribe. You know, the normal stuff. Share it around the internet if you can. I'll be posting it on Reddit and all that. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much for stopping by. I'll see you guys next time.